Okay, turn it up. Lights. Stage is set.
All speakers ready?
Sound recording. Camera roll. We're going live in 3, 2.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melvin, and I'm here today to talk about mindsets that I have personally discovered organically along the way of my 13 years of academic experience and professional experience. But first of all, I'm a big fan of context and background, right? Because what you say can ultimately mean two different things depending on the context and background of that person. So allow me to take 1 or 2 minutes to share a little bit about my personal experience, my life journey, and my adventure so far. I started my adventure at the University of Indonesia, where I pursued my undergraduate studies starting in July 2013 and took the public train from Bogor, where I lived, to Depok, where University of Indonesia is located, and this is the start of my journey. Now, one thing about my adventure is that my parents always tell me that in Indonesian, Papa Mama nggak bisa ninggalin apa-apa buat kamu, right? So they always say that you're on your own, craft your own career, craft your own pathway, do well in life, right? And so with that mindset, I have always wanted to do well in life, right? Like everyone else. And I've also accompanied my dad to job interviews and see how difficult job interviews were. And so in my second year of university, I initiated LinkedIn reached out, cold email to find my first internship at 19 years old, right? And this is my first internship at UOB Bank in the fancy Bundaran HI. And I was so happy getting my first internship, but I wanted to know how hard it is to get a job, how internship feels like, and what working in the real working environment actually feel, right? And so I did my second internship at Mandiri Sekuritas, had a great time there as well, and finally had my third internship at Credit Suisse Investment Bank, right, as a final year student. And so along those journey, I spent 3 internships, right, in my undergraduate studies, and then I graduated in February of 2017, and this might be probably one of the most proud moments for me and my family because I was able to graduate early in 3.5 years and graduated with the highest GPA at my program, right? And for me, my parents is my source of motivation, my life purpose. And that's my ultimate goal for achieving the achievements that I had in my academic journey, right? So then I started my career as a management consultant, fresh out of university with McKinsey, a management consulting firm out of New York, based here in Southeast Asia, and I spent roughly 3 years with McKinsey and Company, and I always recommend any young people, fresh graduates, to start their career with McKinsey and management consulting firms. And then I ventured into venture capital, or the investment world, and received acknowledgement and achievements, right, when I was still 24 years old, being one of the youngest partner at this venture capital fund. Then I moved to North Star Group, another notable private equity and venture capital company in Southeast Asia, stayed there for another 3 years before I set up my own company in 2025, last March, as I turned 30 years old, right? So that was my experience. Today, I'm an entrepreneur, starting again from scratch, along with my wife, building our own company called Kayella, which is a combination of my daughter, Kayella, and Mirella, and that's why it's called Kayella. So this talk is also for them one day, so they can see what I'm trying to tell them 20, 30 years down the line. Now, obviously, Kayella Mirella is a big part of my family, and the journey seems beautiful, isn't it? Right? Comfortable career, great family, grateful for them, great health, until 7 months ago, in June 2025, a friend of mine sent me this text. And I'll let you read through the post, the post that was written by an anonymous person at an unverified forum that was screenshotted and spread widely across many, many contacts of mine, including my father, all the way in Bogor, right? And you can see here that this anonymous post that is not true, right, has spread like wildfire that undermines and destroys my credibility that I have built for the past 13 years, right? And I'm not going to spend much time clarifying about this because that's not the main topic today. But I wanted to show you how, with enough evidence, when I'm not even yet at the company and not responsible for that investment, because the timestamp is very clear, right? Sometimes, life gives you sour lemons, right? And life gives you hardships, even though you feel it's unfair. And one anonymous post by someone random out there could undermine decades of career building, decades of reputation that have been built day in, day out. And so this was what I experienced when I faced that, I would say, toughest moment in my life, right? Many people would criticize, many people will gossip, regardless of the facts. Some would stay silent and neutral, and then a few would support you, and then maybe less than a very few would actually help you out. Now, the reason why I'm telling you my hardship, right, is to show you how mindset is truly powerful in order to get back up and prevail, right? And these are the 5 mindsets that I have equipped myself in the 13 years of academic, professional, and life experiences that have taken me to this stage, right? The first mindset that I always tell young people is to always know your life purpose, right? Why are you here today? Why do you wake up tomorrow? And why do you do what you do, right? We need to have an anchor in our life so that when life gives you sour lemons and obstacles and hardships, that life purpose, make you want to prevail and just not give up, right? And knowing your purpose in life will filter out unproductive activities that is irrelevant to your purpose in life. And this is why I always, again, gratefully know that my purpose in life was my parents. Because I have been in situations when I was, in high school, in my teenagers, going to a restaurant and seeing my parents not order any meal because they want us to be able to eat at the restaurant. And I saw their sacrifices as parents for us, me and my brother. And so that was my purpose in life. Now, people always tell me that sometimes, they don't have a purpose in life just yet, right? So what do you do? So the best alternative to not knowing your life purpose just yet is to deliver your best version every single day, hoping that it would compound and ultimately achieve your objective, right? That's the best alternative. But don't forget that you always need to try, invest your time and effort to know what your purpose in life is over time, right? So that's the first mindset that I always remind myself that, look, I'm here today because of that life purpose. And whatever is thrown at me, I will never give up. I'm gonna get back up because I know that that's my destination, regardless of what attacks or what event happens in my life. The second mindset is what I call manipulating your own mind. Now, another word that maybe Gen Z uses today is delusional, right? Now, I don't want to go that far, but manipulating your mind is trying to be able to control what you think. Because what you think, you become, right? Now, for example, in my experience 6 months ago, right, the way I trick my brain and manipulate the incident that has happened to me is by saying, Melvin, this is your lowest low. It cannot go lower than this. The only way is up. And so strive every single day, rebuild your credibility, rebuild the trust, because you're not gonna see any lower moments than this, right? So I try to trick my brain saying that something negative to become positive. I mean, in a nutshell, is like positive thinking, right? But manipulating your mind or situation can also mean trying to make sure that all outcomes that you might face are all desirable outcomes. For example, I always give this example as an analogy. If you are a Barcelona Football Club fan, right, deep inside your heart, I would sometimes suggest you to bet against the football club. You know why? Because if Barcelona as a football club loses, you might feel sad deep in your heart, but you might gain something in reward in return to that hedge against that decision. So try to manipulate, quote unquote, your situation, your condition, such that all outcomes are desirable outcomes. And one of the things that I do to manipulate my brain is to sit down, grab a piece of paper and a pen, and journal and understand how my brain thinks, and teach my brain how to think well, correctly, so that I move forward and achieve my life purpose. The third mindset is what I call locking yourself up in the right prison, right? What does that mean? Locking yourself in the right prison is forcing yourself to be in an environment where you cannot escape, exit, quit, or feel any sort of temptation, right? For example, if you're trying to lose weight, right, don't go to the supermarket and buy a stash of ice cream and put it in your refrigerator, because one night when you're having that craving, it's so easy for you to open that fridge and take that ice cream, right? You have to know how you behave and imagine yourself living in a four-dimensional space and see how you behave as a human being and see what are the temptations in your life that you need to eliminate so that you are able to perform on a day-to-day basis the best version of yourself, right? Because look, we're human beings, guys. We are always tempted to do something that goes against ourselves. But that's why you need to lock yourself up in the right prison. And that's something that I always constantly do when I know that I will be tempted by A, by B, by C. I'll try to remove and eliminate these temptations in order to be able to perform at my best. The fourth mindset is what I call sense of competition. Now, competition might sound negative in a certain way, but what I'm trying to say here is that you need to have that burning platform that you feel that you are competing with something. Now, the competitor here is not necessarily your colleague, your friend, your cousin, your family. That's not the competitor that I'm trying to put you against, right? The competitor could be yourself 20 years down the line. It could be a deadline that you're trying to hit. It could be a career milestone that you're competing with. But you need to have that sense of competition so that you perform your best. You perform day in, day out, the best version and effort that you exert on that particular life purpose. Now, what I do when I was still in my undergraduate studies is that I compare to what successful corporate professional have in their career and see where they are when they were 25, where they are when they are 28 years old. and I compete my own timeline with their timeline such that I hopefully could become someone like them when I'm in my 40s, right? So that's one example of how I try to compete, not with a person, but with a timeline that I have set on my own. Last but not least, obviously, right, I would say that, and I hope that this doesn't happen to you, but the world and society sometimes do not like abnormalities. When you are different from the average, you might be frowned upon, right? For example, if you get a grade of like 65 out of 100, and then a friend gets a grade of like 90 to 100, will you feel bad? I would feel bad, right? But abnormalities in any shape or form is quote unquote frowned upon in society. So, when you become above average, you might expect some resistance. You might expect some hatred. You might expect some gossip because people don't like not being able to explain that abnormalities, right? People want to be able to explain why that person is such, why is that person such, and they try to explain that with creating rumors and gossip. Why is this person a managing director at 28? It's impossible. There's never been done before, right? And so, again, they rationalize and create stories in order to explain the abnormalities. So, what I'm trying to say here, I hope you don't have to feel any hatred or unhappiness of society or friends with being above average. But learn how to take that as a fuel for your own motivation, because the people that will be most happy if you quit and fail are this same group of people that is hating you for no reason, right? So please, 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 don't take any sort of criticism, harsh criticism, hate, jealousy, and take it as motivation instead. Now, you saw this picture before, right? But I hope you don't need to go through this experience, but if this ever happens to you one day, trust me, you're not alone. That's my email. Let's have a cup of coffee. To end, I'm gonna end with the most generic yet powerful advice ever. Do not give up, right? Because one bad chapter doesn't mean that your life story ends there. Get back up and move forward, like I always try to do. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you never lose in life.